In this video help tutorial, we're going to be on the buyer's sales management. Now, if you recall, we listed items in the last video, and on this screen, what we're going to do is take the listing when it is actually going to be sold, or sold in the process of being listed, or sold at an auction or a garage sale or something like an estate sale. If you did that, this would be what you would do. Now, keep in mind this. You can do these things yourself. If you had a large sale, you could list all the items on the listing side and be prepared if you sell them, say like at an estate sale in your own home or location if you have a business, or if you have a consignment store. This is the kind of thing that you can do where if you listed it at a consignment store, you would have to pay a fee, a percentage of your income as far as the item that's sold. So you have to be aware that if this item is sold in a place where there's a consignment cost, that you need to cover that cost in the listing to make sure that you have that already in the price, cooked into the price when you actually provided the listing to cover it. So if I went into, say for example, this value for the sale was $4,212, that should also include whatever the commission would be when you give it to the consignment store that you hope to receive from it. So in this case, the minimum sell price was based on the basic cost of the item and a margin, and then the sold at price would be the two added together as far as the cost and then the actual sold at price. So this is the minimum. This is what you actually sold it. You might have listed it, or say for example it's on Craigslist and you negotiated a different price. That would show up here as the total. Okay, the top of the item up here, these are the things you have added. It's a sales PO. Now if you create an item here, it's going to add the PO number, which is very much the same as an invoice number. As you add it to a individual, say for example, and this is kind of very critical, say this individual himself has his own record by an ID. Okay, so the ID is for the individual you created. So if I click on this, you'll see that this turned to 1 from 2. John Smith was here, and these are all the items that were ever sold to PO number 1 and the person's name. Now you can do these at different times. I want to be clear about this. You can go ahead and sell one to him 1 week, another week comes by or a month and you sell another item. That's not going to make any difference, because what it's going to do is going to keep a running total for this particular client of all the items that he's purchased and the value of all those items for that purchase. For example, you might find that this buyer says something to the tune of, the next time you have another whatever, please contact me. And if you are out buying something, there may be an order that somebody's asked for you to go find something specifically for that particular item. Say they want a picture and certain type of a picture or whatever. It could be anything you're selling. It could be a bracelet, a diamond ring, or whatever. And they're hoping that you can sell it to them for a better price than they're going to get someplace else as far as a retail item. So this is wholesale. This is the minimum you'll sell it for, and this is your margin plus the minimum you would sell it for. The item's status over here, item is sold, or in this case it gives you a listing over here, and then the actual buyer status. And I could say hold it, and that would be in there. In this case, I'm going to say it actually was sold, and I'd say item sold, and now that's in there. So when you go to the report for the sales for this item, or the invoice to print an invoice, which is up here, you will have that information as far as all the stuff, like there was a 6% tax, the tax charge was 21, the shipping to the person, the handling charges if you charge handling and shipping, and it might not be anything. If you're shipping it from eBay for flat rate because you're getting all your money on here, that's what you'd want to get, the balance of that. Okay, so this is Mr. 1, which is me, and I bought this item also. I got money bags. I'm just buying things all over the place. Well, if I get rid of this and get it off the screen, you can see down here that this is my summary total of all the things I've done: shipping, handling, and tax. Plus, if it has tax and it's in the report, you can also itemize all the tax you collect if you're required in the state that you live in. In a lot of cases, if you're selling this on eBay, you do not have to pay the taxes. And on Craigslist, it's an item you can sell on Craigslist and collect everything. It just really depends on how you want to sell it. You know your own local area and how Craigslist would work, or eBay, or whatever. So this gives you an ability to separate the different kinds of things that you and places where you're selling it. This is a drop down that gives you the selection for each one of the items you're going to sell to this person. So that's how they get into this particular screen. And they're going to drop in the thing, the cost, and all this stuff from the listing that you created over on the listing side on the listing screen. If I wanted to look at the sales portal, I would click here, and I would have a place to put an invoice in there. They call it Snap Image. You just click on it and throw a photo in there from the you could put any kind of photo, by the way. Say, for example, the person, you have the picture already, and say you're going to ship this, and you want to make sure that the packing all looks like it did when you shipped it. And say, for example, it gets to the far side, and if shipping is a package is torn and damaged, you could have what it looked like here when it left, and that's what you'd expect to see it when it gets there too. This has a thing that says import. It allows you to import information from like the desktop or someplace else of your item that you're in. If I'm in a iPad, I would get the photo library. If I had files in here and I would go in there, I would be able to get whatever files are available to me, and I'd go ahead and bring them in. Place for notes. If there's special notes that you want to cover something about the item as it's being shipped to the buyer, you could put that in there. Now, you really, really have to make sure you have all the information in here, especially if you're selling it through one of the entities, and maybe the person didn't take that information. You make sure that your particular shipping stuff that you're going to have to do is covered as far as the information if you're going to ship it. If you have it in a consignment store and they deliver it to the person hand to hand or ship it to that person, make sure that you have an agreement with a consignment store where they're paying for the shipping, and they need to include that as an extra item over the top of your sold at price. It's not your responsibility to collect the shipping if they're going to ship it. And they do whatever they're going to do on the shipping, if they're going to add a little to it or whatever. If there's a website for this organization, for example, or the user in this case, the buyer, and he has a website, you can add the URL for the website, and it'll open it if you click this, so you can see the actual person. Maybe this person's buying it for his own business, and he's selling it again like a consignment store of his own. You could go ahead and look up his website. And this is kind of crafty, but it's very true. If somebody's buying something, then they give you an address, and you click on it, and it's an expensive item, and you look at it, and the guy wants to write a check, and you reach over here and you pop up this thing, and you're looking at where he works, or you can go over and look at the actual. Let's go back to the main site, back over here. There is a location map, and as silly as this sounds, if you take the little guy that's in the corner and put him in front of the guy's house and look at where he's living like this, a lot of times you have to be logged in to get the little guy to come in, so you'd have to log into this, and you can do that. But you look at his house, wherever it's located, and what it's going to do is going to show you what it looks like where he lives. Now, I did this on a number of occasions where somebody had a check and they wanted to pay for something like a computer when I worked in a computer business. And what I saw was a big truck sitting in the front yard up on jack stands with the tires removed. And the house behind it, there was a door laying off of it over in the corner. And this guy wants to write me a check for something. At that point, you have to make a decision. I want cash, or I want a valid credit card. And you have to check the ID at that point. I saved our company from getting burned a number of times by looking up the image and making sure that it was actually going to work, that this person, and it's not prejudice, you're protecting the business. In fact, I got a bonus for stopping this guy from buying a $1,000 laptop when obviously the check was bogus. And the boss was kind of squeamish about it, and he went ahead and let me take the check, but I also copied the guy's driver's license with the check on a copy machine. Come to find out, the check was phony, but I had the guy's driver's license. We sent a detective out who worked part-time for us, who was an officer of the law, and picked the guy up and took him to jail. And the day we were in court, I had the driver's license and the image of the check. So that tells you what you should be doing as far as covering people if they look suspicious or act that way. So anyhow, let's go over here. We have the sale. We're going to do the individual sale. We can print a label, and I'll talk about that later. But I need to get the payment. So what happens here doesn't make any difference how many of these you have if the summary that the guy still owes you, in this particular case, is met over here. And basically there's a balance of $49.79. If you go ahead and have the $49.79 and the balance due is 0, then you don't have to worry about it. Basically I'm putting in the PO number, the amount paid, or amount due, and the amount paid, and then the date it was paid, and the balance is due. It will calculate to 0. And how did he pay for it? Credit card. And if I want to see the individual portal record for that, I can come over here and look, and then I can go through them next, and look at each one of the different records. And then I can also delete the record if it was, say, for example, I was making an entry, made an error, and I couldn't edit it out. I could just go ahead and take this out, and it'll take that row of data in there out. Okay, so I can also use this to go back to the record where I'm working, or I can go on into, I want to go show you up here where we're at. We've looked at the, well, we haven't done the print invoice yet, but we looked at the list view, and this is at least the 2 transactions that are available to us that we have in the records. And if you click this button at the end, it'll take you into that particular listing for that person. If you go back up here and you go down to the buyer sales invoice, I'm going to go ahead. There's one for a print invoice and there's one for a sales invoice. And the difference is one has a little bit more stuff on it, like the buttons and stuff like that. And on the print invoice, if we come back up here and look at the print invoice, it's a clean one that you're going to use just for printing. And in this case, this particular one is the one we're going to work in. If you need to see the information for any of the line items in the record, you would go ahead and click on that. Now I'm going to show you something which you're supposed to do in the invoice. The first thing you want to do is go up and click in the record for the buyer, which brings up that particular buyer. If you wanted to highlight his information, you'll see when I clicked in here, I also got the record for that. If I click down here, notice it'll change up here for the information whom this invoice is listed for, and the buyer PO number is the record that we saw in the sales area. If you then go in here and say, for example, I want the guy to pay for this particular set of invoices, I would go up here and I would do a do action. I would say start a find. I'd put the number 1 in there, and that's for that particular PO. And then I would say perform the find, do the find, and now you'll see that the record that is in there is the one I want with the summary total of the items that are due. And I could, for example, if it's paid or not paid or whatever, I can go ahead and provide this guy with an invoice for those items. Sales tax, shipping, sum of handling, and so forth. Now, say, for example, that this guy already paid for this one item but didn't pay for this one. It says item sold, but I would go ahead and click in here, and if I didn't want to include that in the invoice, I would come down here and I'd say omit the record, and now it's this one that is shown. Oh, that wasn't the one I wanted. I want the other one. Go over here and say do action, show omitted record only. And it reverses the item, and now they're back in here again. So, and show all records, if you go back over here and say show all records, show all, it brings them all back so you can edit it again. In this particular case, if I wanted to go to number 2, I could do a find on that. Now watch, it says 1 up here. Click number 2, changed everything. And up here it says who the person is. In this case, it's Clement and Smith. That tells me that this is Mr. Clement's record. If he sold that, if you sold it to Mr. Clement, when I looked at that, or up here, Mr. Clement, then I know that I have the right record for the guy that's standing in front of me or paying the bill. Over here for you, you can go ahead and insert your own image that you use for your invoices, and then you can put your data address in here as far as your business address in here. Now, recall when I showed in previous videos, you can actually edit this and then also do the bold, italic, underline type of a thing. And then you can also go over and either copy and paste something and then paste it in there as far as the image that you want to actually put in there. So here you can say select all, or paste something in there, paste text only, or style. In this case, style allows you to set the point size, the color, and the font. bold, italic, and underline. So there's a lot of things you can do in here as far as managing it. Because of the spacing and everything over here that I set up, it's probably not a good idea to change these using that entity as far as changing things, as far as selecting it. You can just go in here and click in. You're already clicked in there. Just backspace it out and put your own data for your business, for your own invoices. Okay, let's go back into the records themselves. And we're back in here, and let's go back and remember that there is a print invoice thing up here that you can click that'll also take you directly to the invoice when you're ready. So you're not trying to fish in here and find it if you don't want to look for it right away. Buyer's sales portal. This is the individual portal record with the information that is from the actual purchase thing. You can go to the buyer's sales report from here. You can go to the buyer's sales screen and the buyer's sales list view. These are what I call quick links. So if you just click on those, it's going to take you to those items and those screens. You can also do next and previous. In this case, I'm going to go to the sales portal. In this case, that's the buyer sales portal and buyer's portal. Okay, we're already in there, so we don't use those to go in there. Then there's the sales report. And basically, this is where definitely you want to do something with the find. In this case, if you're looking for a particular person and you want it, or date or something like that, where you want to look at a range. Say, for example, you want to see everything you sold for the week of and put that week of in here, whatever that might be, and then go ahead and run the report. And the way you do that is you would go ahead and say, do the find and pick something in here that is particularly about that. For example, in this case, it might be the sales ID for the person that you want to do it for, and that'd be Clement. And then it would give you the listing of all the items that are sold for him. Say, for example, you wanted to see everything for everybody that was from a certain period of time. You could go ahead and do that, or the shipping date or billing date, or through a certain value. And the way you do that, and these kind of things that I'm talking about, if you need help on that or you wonder how you can do it, I can show you how to do it. Basically, if I were looking for a certain money value, in this case, and it was in an area that I can actually, and this sales price is already calculated, so I can't change it. And same with this one. This is the line total. I would go down here and I'd say, maybe I want to find everything that was sold. Let's go over here. Click again. I'm trying to get to it. Or in this case, I might have to go to find to do it because it's locked when it's not in find. So I have to go into find mode, start the find, and then go in here and I'd say I want to see everything between the value of a certain thing. Let's say everything that is greater than or equal to, let's say $1,000. Okay. And then I'll go up here, and you can do a less than or equal to and put a higher value or a lesser value. So I could set the top value. So everything over $1,000 is going to show up here. So I'd say do the find. And then only one was omitted and two were shown. And everything here is over $1,000. Or I could say everything over $4,000. So you can see that you can run a report as far as anything that you want to show and specifically related to values or dates or times. So these are sold and they should be marked as that. Item is sold, item is sold. You want to be careful. You can also do when you do the find, if you want to only see the items that are pre-listed or items that are sold or listed, you take this and put that in there when you're doing the find, and that will find only the items based on the actual entry you put in here. And then you can add a duplicate thing, like I want to see Mr. 2 and only items that we sold him or listed or whatever from this list. Those would separate it. So there's a lot of ways you can look up information doing a find. Let's go back over, and we're going to go into the next thing we're looking for is the print labels. And the print labels are, in this case, the current record for the person that you're in that screen. You can go ahead and print a label and then go ahead and, what I call it, sticky stick it. It's a thing you buy at a stationery store that is a stick that you can rub on the back of the paper and stick it on. Or you can tape over it, whatever. It's a lot less expensive to do a label like this than it is to have a label that you print a whole sheet of them in this case. Now when you go to print, you go down here, it'll say print, and you can set up the record, the current record, or you can say, for example, the current records in selection. For example, the found set is what that's called. So if I had 10 different people that I wanted to print instead of the one, I would say, okay, go ahead and print all the people in this case. And I'm going to say print. I'm not going to go through the print thing, but it'll actually pop up if you have a printer. It'll show you what it's going to look like on the page, and you can set the size of it to whatever you want it to be. And you can say one copy, and you can say select the printer. And I don't have my printer turned on. If I did, it would bring up my printer and you can see it, and then you can go ahead and print it. In this case, I'm just going to say cancel it, and you can see how to print labels. Okay, let's go back to buyer. We have something very similar to that, by the way, when you do it. Down here where it says print labels, but those are for the listed items. Okay. Okay, so let's go back over here and see that we've covered everything down in this group all the way to the print label screen. In the next video, we'll be covering the business expense group and what those are, and we'll cover those screens. As usual, if you have any questions or need assistance, or you want to do something special that was not explained, go ahead and contact me so I can go ahead and assist you. You have free technical support, so use it. Thank you.